I'm Lorne Greene, and if there's one thing I really believe in...
Ever since we were together on Bonanza, he's been like a real son to me.
After just 16 episodes of Bonanza, Lorne Greene threatened to quit. The show was ranked number 45 and dying. He told producers Ben Cartwright was too cold, too fake. They rewrote the character, and 2 years later, Bonanza hit number 2. But Greene's fight didn't stop there. He clashed with Pernell Roberts so badly that crew members had to pull them apart. He argued with Michael Landon about the show's direction. And when Dan Blocker died in 1972, Greene said the show should have ended 6 seasons earlier. What really happened behind the scenes? The truth is darker than the reruns ever showed. Lion Hyman Greene was born on February 12, 1915, in Ottawa. It was one of the coldest winters Canada had ever seen. The temperature dropped to -40 degrees. His father, Daniel Greene, had fled from Russia back in 1902 after escaping violent attacks against Jews. He ran a tiny shoe repair shop and made just $8 a week during the war. The whole family squeezed into a 2-room apartment at 127 Clarence Street. 6 people lived there, including Lion's grandparents, who didn't speak a word of English. Lion slept on a bed made from flour sacks stuffed with newspaper. In 1918, the Spanish flu swept through the city and killed 200 people in Ottawa alone. 3-year-old Lion got so sick with pneumonia, everyone thought he wouldn't make it. But his grandmother made him swallow raw garlic and honey every hour for weeks. Somehow, he survived. His mother, Dora, worked 14 hours a day in a factory, earning just 15 cents an hour. At night, she brought home torn newspapers she found in rich neighborhoods. She used them to teach Lion how to read, believing education would save him from a life of poverty. On March 15, 1922, when Lion was 7, his life changed again. At exactly 2:47 in the afternoon, his father's cobbler shop caught fire. Faulty wiring mixed with shoe polish fumes and set the place ablaze. The fire destroyed $400 worth of tools and equipment, which would be worth about $6,000 today. Daniel barely made it out alive. His hands were badly burned trying to save his tools. They had no insurance. He still owed $200 in rent. They were evicted and ended up living in the basement of the Hebrew Benevolent Society on Chapel Street. 12 families crammed in there. Lion slept on an old army cot and started having nightmares about fire and screaming. That fire left scars. He grew up afraid of debt and never wanted to rely on just one job. Years later in Hollywood, that fear shaped how he made money and avoided risky investments. Daniel eventually got a $50 loan from the Jewish Loan Society and opened a smaller shop. But the family never got back to where they were. Lion never forgot that loss. By 1928, Lion was 13 and attending Lisgar Collegiate. That fall, he was cast as Tree Number 3 in a school play called The Enchanted Forest. He had just 2 lines, but instead, he stood on stage and delivered a 5-minute speech mocking Ottawa's corrupt city council. The audience froze, then burst into laughter. He joked that the mayor was worse than rotten wood, and even mentioned the $10,000 scandal involving Mayor Frank Plant. 3 board members stormed out, and the mayor's wife demanded Lion be kicked out of school. He was suspended for a week, but his drama teacher pulled him aside and told him he had real talent. That night taught him 2 things. First, he loved the power of performance. And second, politics could be dangerous if you spoke too boldly. In 1931, when Lion was 16, the Great Depression was hitting hard. Canada's unemployment had hit 27%. Lion started visiting dumps and junkyards to collect broken wires and tubes. He wanted to build a radio. Using $2.75 saved from delivering newspapers and a blueprint from Popular Mechanics, He built a 5-tube super heterodyne radio in his family's coal cellar. His father refused to let him use the lights, so Lyon worked by candlelight. The radio picked up stations from Chicago and Pittsburgh. When his mother heard him listening, she smashed it with a rolling pin. She said performers were worse than circus people, still bitter about a family member who failed in showbiz. But Lyon just rebuilt it in a neighbor's garage and kept practicing. Every night from midnight to 2 a.m., he read newspaper headlines into a homemade microphone. That radio became his escape. In June 1933, Lyon graduated high school. Canada's jobless rate hit 30%. His uncle offered him a 15-hour-a-week job at the Imperial Bank. But Lyon turned it down. Instead, he enrolled in acting school at the Ottawa Little Theatre. Tuition was $8 a month. He had only $23 saved. His father exploded in anger. They fought so loudly that neighbors called the police. Lyon took the name Lorne after reading about Scotland's River Lorne, trying to build a new identity. His first semester fee was paid by pawning his father's gold pocket watch. That caused a 3-year rift in the family. But Lorne had made his choice. In 1939, Lorne Greene joined CBC Radio in Toronto. He was 24. He had just returned from New York's neighborhood playhouse. At CBC, he quickly became the main national newsreader. He even invented a reverse stopwatch that helped announcers keep track of time during live segments. People called him the Voice of Canada. But when World War II started and he began reading casualty reports, that nickname turned grim. His deep, serious voice delivered the worst news to families across the country. As Canada lost more than 45,000 soldiers, his voice became a symbol of death. People started calling him the Voice of Doom. It weighed on him. It was too much sadness, night after night. Eventually, he left CBC to join the Royal Canadian Air Force. He worked in broadcasting roles, narrating wartime documentaries like Fighting Norway and Churchill's Island. That last one even won an Academy Award. But after the war, CBC tried to take a cut of his outside earnings. He refused. He quit the staff job and became a freelancer. By 1945, Lorne had opened a school in Toronto called the Academy of Radio Arts. He ran it until 1952. He made little money from it, but he wanted to help others. Among his students were Leslie Nielsen and Mavor Moore. His school taught both announcing and acting. He poured everything he had into it. In 1951, Lorne co-founded the Jupiter Theatre in Toronto. It ran until 1954. They performed 15 plays, including 4 written by Canadians. It was part of Lorne's bigger mission to build something uniquely Canadian. The theatre didn't last, but it helped shape Canada's national voice in the arts. Lorne moved to Hollywood in 1952 at the age of 37. At CBC, he had earned $200 a week. In Hollywood, he started from scratch. He had a $3,000 drama scholarship from the Canadian government, but his deep voice made casting directors assume he was a villain. He refused to accept typecasting. His break came when Orson Welles heard him give a monologue on a TV show. Still, Lorne spent $500 on voice coaching to smooth out his accent. In 1953, he took a controversial job narrating The Heart of Time, a documentary about nuclear testing. But when he discovered the government had cut footage showing deformities in animals, he walked off the project and gave up his $2,500 pay. That decision cost him more work, but earned him respect from anti-nuclear groups. In 1954, Warner Brothers gave him a $15,000 a year contract. In Tight Spot, a crime film, he broke his nose doing his own stunts. He kept filming, refusing painkillers. That role earned him respect. The movie made $1.2 million. In 1956, he passed on a $25,000 soap opera deal to take a role in a sci-fi radio series called The Garrick Powers Story, which paid only $300 per episode. He played a scientist warning listeners about radiation. The role reflected his growing concern for the environment. He even did research at UCLA to make sure his facts were accurate. The show lasted just 26 episodes, but it put him on the radar of scientists and activists like Linus Pauling. In 1957, he tried starting his own production company, Lorne Greene Enterprises. He invested $15,000 of his savings to make a documentary about the War of 1812. The project needed $50,000, and NBC was interested, until they demanded control of his voice work for 5 years. Lorne said no. The deal collapsed. He had already spent $35,000 on research and gear. He had to sell his home in Burbank for $16,000, even though he'd bought it for $18,000 3 years earlier. That failure hit hard. The house had marked his Hollywood arrival. He never forgot that lesson about contracts. Later, during his Bonanza years, he made sure to include clauses for profit sharing and creative input. Every risk he had taken, every lesson he had learned, every radio built in the dark, every word spoken through pain, all of it shaped the man he would soon become on screen, and the world was finally ready to meet him. Before anyone ever saw him on screen, they heard his voice. In the early 1940s, Lorne Greene's deep voice came through Canadian radios almost every night. He didn't bring entertainment. He brought war. From 1940 to 1945, he read out names of soldiers who had died, gave updates on battles, and told people about losses overseas. His voice was calm but powerful, and it made families freeze in place. They called him the voice of doom. Some even turned off the radio when he came on, too afraid to hear if their son or brother was next. Over 2 million Canadians listened every night. He wasn't just a voice, he was the sound of heartbreak. During this time, he was also serving as a flying officer in the Royal Canadian Air Force. He had to wear 2 uniforms, one for war and one for radio, and both weighed heavy on his mind. Years later, he admitted those broadcasts gave him nightmares. In 1945, Lorne tried to create something lighter. He invented a new kind of stopwatch that ran backward, helping radio hosts know how much time they had left. It became a studio standard. With the money from that invention, he opened a school in Toronto called the Lorne Greene Academy of Radio Arts. From 1945 to 1952, it trained 381 students. Nearly all of them, 90%, got jobs in broadcasting. 2 of them were Leslie Nielsen and James Doohan, both of whom would become stars. But Lorne was great at teaching, not at running a business. He spent too much on the building and the equipment. By 1952, the school went broke. He had to shut it down, sell the building, and use whatever was left to move to Hollywood. That move almost ruined him. Hollywood didn't welcome him with open arms. From 1952 to 1959, he was told over and over again that his voice was too serious. Directors said he was too stiff for romance or comedy. He only got fatherly or stern roles. In 7 years, he was cast in just 12 TV shows and 4 movies. It barely paid the bills. He did voiceover work secretly under fake names to keep food on the table. By 1957, he was ready to quit. But his wife convinced him to stay 1 more year. That extra year changed everything. In 1958, his performance on live TV in Studio One caught the eye of Bonanza's producer. That opened the door, but it didn't swing wide. Right before that break, in 1958, he took a small part in The Buccaneer with Yul Brynner and Charlton Heston. During sword training, he got slashed so badly in the leg that it cut a small artery. He needed 23 stitches. With filming just weeks away, he kept the injury hidden. He bandaged it himself, walked without limping, and kept fighting through pain. The cut reopened twice, and he had to get secret treatments in a nearby hospital. His wife and his doctor were the only ones who knew how bad it was. The infection nearly killed him. Then, in 1959, he was offered a role in a new Western series called Bonanza. At 44, he was told he could choose between playing the father or the oldest son. He asked his old student Leslie Nielsen for advice. Leslie told him, "Play the father. He'll be the center of the story." Lorne took the role of Ben Cartwright and signed a 7-year deal at $2,500 per episode. The show would air in color, which was rare at the time. Bonanza premiered on September 12, 1959. It didn't explode right away, but Lorne was already reshaping it from the inside. After just 16 episodes, Lorne threatened to quit. He said Ben Cartwright came off as cold and shallow. He wanted the scripts to show the character as more human, a real father, not just a man with a gun. At that time, the show was ranked number 45 and was in danger of being canceled. But the writers listened. By episode 13, they rewrote Ben to be warmer and wiser. That change didn't just save the show. It became the heart of Bonanza's long success. By 1961, the ratings jumped to number 2. Even before the show hit its peak, trouble started on set. Lorne clashed hard with Pernell Roberts, who played his son. Pernell thought Lorne acted like a boss and tried to control too much. They argued often, sometimes yelling so loud producers had to step in. Lorne saw himself as a leader. Pernell saw him as a dictator. They disagreed on almost everything. By 1964, Lorne was earning $2,500 per episode, plus extra money as a consultant. Pernell made the same base salary but no bonuses. That widened the rift. When Pernell left the show in 1965 after 202 episodes, Michael Landon joked, "We took one leaf out of the dining table and split the take 3 ways instead of 4. Lorne's push for change came from something deeper. He had seen too much war. In episode 13 of the first season, he asked the producer, "Why are we always pointing a gun at someone?" He said the Cartwrights should offer kindness before violence. That small comment changed the show's tone. Bonanza became known for its moral lessons, not just shootouts. It dealt with racism, justice, and dignity. That was all Lorne's doing. His own past in the war made him push for something better. By 1961, his salary was $10,000 per episode. But what no one knew was that he quietly gave 20% of that, about $2,000 per episode, to Canadian war orphans. He did this in secret for years. The IRS only found out during tax audits in the 1970s. He had lost his own brother during the 1918 flu and had seen too many orphans in Europe during the war. By the end of Bonanza in 1973, he had donated over $400,000. That's nearly $2.8 million today. In Season 4, he directed his first episode. It was called War Wagon, and it aired during the 1962-1963 season when Bonanza was ranked number 4. He rewrote a scene for Dan Blocker to make a point about animal welfare. That didn't sit well with some of the stunt crew, who walked off the set in protest. Lorne stayed firm, even if it made things harder behind the scenes. In 1964, his personal life hit the headlines. While filming on location, he had an affair that made the tabloids. At the time, he had been married to Rita Hands since 1938, and they had twins born in 1944. When the affair came out, it shocked his fans. His song Ringo had just hit the #1 on December 5, 1964, and stayed at the top of the easy listening chart for 6 weeks. The guilt got to him. He helped write an episode focused on family values, trying to patch his image while dealing with personal regret. The song Ringo had been a surprise hit. Many young buyers thought it was about Ringo Starr. It wasn't. But Lorne still made around $500,000 in royalties. He gave that money to anti-nuclear causes. He had worked with the National Film Board of Canada during Wwatu and had strong views about nuclear weapons. He even wrote letters to U.S. senators asking for changes to policy. He knew that kind of activism could hurt his popularity with Bonanza's conservative viewers. He did it anyway. By 1966, a new conflict was brewing, this time with Michael Landon. Landon wanted more love stories in the show to appeal to younger fans. Lorne didn't like the idea. He called it trashy distraction. When Landon started directing his own episodes, it created two different visions of the show. It became a quiet war behind the scenes. Pernell had already left, and now Lorne found himself fighting with another son figure on the set. The pressure was growing, but even under that tension, he pushed the show forward. In Season 7, he helped create episodes that dealt directly with racism, like The Wish. He made sure Native Americans were played by Native actors. He received hate mail for it, but the NAACP noticed. They praised him for breaking old stereotypes. Bonanza used its huge platform, it was still in the top 5 shows, to talk about real issues. That was Lorne's doing. Lorne Greene had already become a household name by the time Bonanza ended in 1973. For 14 years, he played Ben Cartwright, the strong father figure in one of the most loved TV westerns ever made. But in 1978, at the age of 63, something unexpected happened. He moved into science fiction. That year, he was cast as Commander Adama in Battlestar Galactica. It wasn't just a new role, it was a complete shift in his career. He had once been known as a rancher guiding his sons through the Wild West, and now he was leading humanity's last hope in space. The original series only lasted from 1978 to 1979 with 21 episodes, but he came back again in Galactica 1980 for 10 more episodes. His deep, steady voice, once called the voice of doom during World War II when he read war news on the radio, fit perfectly for a space commander. Years earlier, people had heard that same voice delivering frightening wartime bulletins over CBC radio. That tone of calm and control stayed with him. But Lorne Greene didn't just switch genres overnight. In 1971, while Bonanza was still running strong, he tried something completely different. He starred in a 2-hour TV movie called The Harness, based on a story by John Steinbeck. In this film, he played a farmer who lived under the control of his sick wife. It was quiet, personal, and nothing like his usual roles. The movie was directed by Boris Sagal and co-starred Julie Sommers and Murray Hamilton. It earned a solid 8.0 out of 10 rating on IMDb, based on 34 reviews. What mattered more was how it showed Greene could go far beyond the steady, wise father figure. He drew on his own childhood growing up in Ottawa with immigrant parents and used that experience to show real struggle on screen. Even behind the scenes, Greene was dealing with hard moments. He had married Rita Hands in 1938, and they had twins in 1944, but they divorced in 1960. He married again in 1961, this time to Nancy Deal, and stayed with her until he passed away. Those personal highs and lows shaped his performances. After Bonanza ended, he took roles that let him explore deeper emotions. He made appearances in shows like Mission, Impossible, using his real-life experiences with family and loss to bring more honesty to his characters. He also returned to his roots in radio by narrating documentaries. Back in the 1940s, he had narrated films like Churchill's Island, War Clouds in the Pacific, and Inside Fighting China. That deep voice was his greatest tool. In the 1970s, he used it again to tell stories, this time through environmental programs. From 1974 to 1975, he hosted Last of the Wild, a syndicated nature series. It didn't take long before he found his most successful new project. In 1982, Lorne Greene's New Wilderness launched on CTV. It ran for 104 episodes until 1987, right up to the year he died. The show was about the environment, animals, and the beauty of the wild. It let him speak about causes he truly cared about: conservation, wildlife, and the earth itself. Even while working on these shows, the pain of Bonanza's final years stayed with him. In Season 12, which aired from September 13th, 1970 to April 11th, 1971, the show started to fall apart. Pernell Roberts had already left in 1965, and by the early 70s, the writing felt weaker. NBC started interfering too much. That season had 28 episodes, but the ratings dropped to number 9. Greene felt the soul of the show was missing. He once said working during those final years felt like walking into a house where someone had died. During the last season in 1972 and 1973, Greene wanted to change something. He hoped the writers would allow Ben Cartwright to go through a divorce, reflecting what Greene had been through himself. But NBC said no. They didn't want to talk about divorce or remarriage in a family show. Greene was frustrated. He believed it would have made the character more human. But the network didn't want to take the risk. That rejection added to his feeling that the show had lost its heart. In 1974, Greene told the Toronto Star that Bonanza should have ended at season 6. He said that after that point, the show lost its direction. When Dan Blocker died in 1972, it left a hole that nothing could fill. NBC tried to bring in new characters like Jamie Hunter, but Greene knew it wasn't the same. The original bond between the main characters was gone. What hurt most was how NBC ended the show. Greene said they were told on a Monday that the show would be canceled on Wednesday. No one got the chance to write a proper goodbye. After 431 episodes, the final episode aired on January 16, 1973. It wasn't even the last one they filmed. Greene imagined an ending where Little Joe gets married and rides off into the sunset with his family. Instead, the show just stopped. It ended without a real farewell. After the show ended, Greene had some hard conversations with his former castmates. When talk of a Bonanza movie came up in the 1970s, he disagreed with Michael Landon about how to handle it. He believed that anything new should respect Dan Blocker's memory. Greene thought some of the TV movies that came later didn't honor what Bonanza stood for. He and Landon didn't always see eye to eye about the legacy of the show, and those tensions remained until Landon passed away in 1991. Greene passed away on September 11, 1987, at age 72 in Santa Monica's St. John's Hospital. It wasn't just pneumonia. He had surgery for a perforated bleeding ulcer on August 5th and developed adult respiratory distress syndrome. He was supposed to start filming Bonanza, the next generation, on October 24th that year, but he never got the chance. Around 500 people came to his funeral at Hillside Memorial Park in Culver City. The chapel held 300, and another 200 listened outside on speakers during the 75-minute service. Both Michael Landon and Pernell Roberts were there. It was a quiet reunion of the Bonanza family, but Greene's legacy didn't end there. He had become chairman of the National Wildlife Foundation. He wrote Lorne Greene's Book of Remarkable Animals. His TV show, New Wilderness, continued to teach people even after he was gone. He had become more than an actor. He had become a guide, a storyteller, someone who used his voice to protect the planet. That same voice, which once brought news of war, later brought peace and wonder to families watching nature unfold on TV. Even before all of that, during the 1940s, he was known as the Voice of Doom because of how serious and steady he sounded while reporting war updates. But as the war ended and the world moved on, so did his voice. It became the voice of Canada's hope, and later, the voice of America's favorite TV dad. His final dream was to return once more to the role that made him famous. But fate didn't allow it. And yet, his influence lives on. Shows like Yellowstone, with Kevin Costner playing John Dutton, carry echoes of what Greene created with Ben Cartwright. The idea of a man who protects his land, his family, and his values no matter the cost. That was Lorne Greene's gift to television. His legacy isn't just in reruns, It's in every strong, thoughtful patriarch who came after him,